Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode is going to be on a battery-powered air conditioning unit from Zero Breeze. That's right, battery-powered. So let's get right into it. All right, so getting started with this product, I gotta say, it is pretty interesting and there are many benefits to it. More than I thought at first. So the first thing I would like to do is separate the air conditioning unit from the battery, which is actually very simple. Little switch on the back. We press it, slide the unit forwards, and it comes right off of the battery unit. We'll set that off to the side. And basically what we're left with is a nice, sleek little battery unit. Now, what's interesting about this is it doesn't just charge and be used with the AC unit. So this is unique because here, I have a smart battery unit and it has all kinds of outputs on it. So does the battery to the air conditioning unit. So there are two USB ports on the front as well as a PD port. So if you do need to use this by itself and use it as a battery unit out of AC season, so if we're in the wintertime like we are right now and I don't need an air conditioning unit, I could put the air conditioning unit in storage and I can just bring the battery, charge it up, and use it as a very, very slim battery bank, which is pretty interesting, I think. It fits into a lot of different areas. You can put battery units on top of it and still access the ports from the front and with an on and off switch there, as well as LED indicators on the top of it, so you can tell how much power is inside of it. So we'll go back over to the unit and have a look at that. All right, so having a look at the actual air conditioning unit itself. Now, I will say that this was sent to me from Zero Breeze. No, this is not a sponsored video. As you guys know here on the channel, I do what I want, I show what I want, and I say what I want. Totally upfront and honest, I was not very interested in a portable air conditioning unit until after I started using it and started using my brain and thinking, how can I utilize it to be most efficient? And I have to say, I am surprised. So, moving across the unit, towards the front, we do have a little vent here. This is the output for the cold air. There is also a little LCD screen built into that, and that'll light up once I connect the battery to it and I start showing you guys some of the features. On the top of the unit, there are sleek buttons. So these are all touch sensitive. They're not actually press buttons. And then there are LEDs up here to show the degree of the fan, how high it's running, what mode you're in. All of this stuff does light up. We'll have a look at that once we fire it up. Moving towards the back of the unit, there are two exhaust ports, and these covers come off so you can actually clean the filters inside both the rear vents and the front vent as well. The air conditioning unit is known as the Mark II Smart Battery System. It is a battery operated system, as I've already mentioned. It did come complete with all of the hardware and charging ports, everything needed to actually hook this up and run it in a permanent or a temporary situation. So here I have the bag. It's got instruction booklets. It has a drain hose for condensation. We've got some tools. We've got a little remote, so we can actually operate this via remote instead of actually coming up to the unit, which can be very useful if you're going to be mounting this in a more discreet location. We also have a charge cable and a couple other things in there we'll take a look at in a moment. We have two of these ducting pieces that actually click on. They're kind of like manifolds. They go on the front and the rear of the unit in a more permanent situation, and I'll show you what those are used for a little later on. Set those off to the side. We then have these expandable ducting ports. So these are really, really durable. You can collapse them, you can reuse them. Those actually connect to these. Like I said, we'll take a look at that in a little bit. There is a short one, and then there are two long ones that are equal length, two for the back, one for the front. And then we have the charging unit, which is via AC. Plug it into your home wall. It then has this aircraft type style 4-pin charge cable. It hooks in and you can actually screw it in with a ring, making this a very, very sturdy setup. So that is how you charge the battery unit. All right, so reconnecting the air conditioning unit to the battery dock is very simple. Just want to line up all the feet and then give it a firm press towards the rear. It then locks in. There are two ports on the rear. We have one here and one on the rear of the battery. So I'll just take that rubber door off. So we have two 4-pin connectors, and that is where we're going to plug in the supplied aircraft cable here. We can either thread it in so it doesn't come disconnected. For this demonstration, I'm just simply going to plug it in. It's not going to fall out. So we'll get that plugged in, making sure it's firmly seated, and then we'll spin the unit back around. On the front of the unit, we then have one single press, turning on the battery, turning on the unit, and then all these controls up top are now active to simply press and turn on the unit, and then we can go through all the different functions and different speeds. Alright, so coming in really close, you guys can see it is giving a readout of 64 degrees Fahrenheit. We do have all of the controls up here. It is operational right now. This does rotate up and down. Give you guys just a listen at how quiet that is. It is right now on cool mode. I'll switch it over to rocket mode, which is the highest performing mode, and we'll crank up the fan to its highest output possible, and you guys can have a listen. Alright, so coming into this bag of accessories that they supplied us with, we do have an instruction booklet for the AC unit, for the battery. We then have a drainage hose here that connects to the back of the unit for condensation drainage. We then have a hex key with 2 screws, and that will be very important for the vent. I'll touch more on that in a little bit. We then have a tiny battery operated remote with all the functions needing to operating the AC unit. So if you do wish to connect the vent onto the front of the unit to then run ducting to the unit as opposed to blowing straight out of the actual unit itself, you would then need those screws to connect the ducting on. The screws go in the side, mounting that onto the unit, corresponding with this white tubing, which then threads in, and then you can run it through your ducting wherever you need the hose to go to. Alright, so coming over to the back side of the unit, we have the 2 exhaust ports, and this plastic shroud simply clicks on, just like that. No screws needed on the rear. And then again, you can connect your 2 hoses, which simply screw in, ducting the hot air away from the unit and possibly outside of your bus, home, or cabin. So with this rear ducting unit connected to the AC unit and our power wire, I'm going to spin this around just a little bit to access this drainage hole over here. That corresponds with our actual drainage hose, which then simply connects onto the unit, and then you can run this down towards a bucket or possibly through a hole in your floor if you're running a cabin or a tiny home, to then vent out any condensation, being liquid water, that builds up in the unit to then go outdoors or in a safety catch pail. Alright, so I know it's very hard to make out, but currently the outside temperature is 1.3 degrees Celsius and the inside temperature is 24 degrees Celsius inside of my tiny home. What I'm going to do is turn the unit on, put a hose on it, and point it at the unit to then get a reading of what kind of cold air we can push at it. Alright, so this is going to be a little bit of a rudimentary experiment, but it should work. We are inside of a tiny home with a wood stove about 4 feet from this unit. That temperature unit should get affected by the cold air being blown on it. We're just going to try and see. So over top of the screw holes, there are 2 little rubber black plugs. These are disposable. You have to pull them out. I'm just going to throw them away. I won't need them again. And I'm going to take this ducting unit, get it on there the right way, and insert the 2 provided screws. Now, the only downfall with doing this is once the hose is on, that LCD screen that is inside is no longer legible. You can no longer visually see it, so you can't read the temperature that's coming off of it. If you have an issue with that, you might want to think about it, but for me personally, if I was running this inside of my tiny home, I wouldn't necessarily be looking at the temperature on the unit. I would be looking at the temperature on my bus, which will give me the inside temperature and the outside temperature of what I'm dealing with. So, just a little piece of information for you guys. If you do plan on using that screen and running the hose, you can't do both at the same time. So I'm just going to tighten this up nice and snug. And this is the first time putting this on too, guys, so I'm actually doing this real time. Everything seems to be going quite well. So that's on there pretty secure. Now I'm going to grab one of these short hoses and we're going to expand it all the way to get these threads exposed. And it threads in counterclockwise. So we're going to line it up counterclockwise all the way in there. That is mounted. And like I said, guys, I'm going to move this over And I'm going to position that hose. It looks like a jetpack, but I'm going to position this hose directly on, literally on the temperature probe. And we're going to see if we can alter that number. So let's get it fired up. Simply turn on the battery unit. We are on. Power. I'm going to maximize the fan speed. It is on rocket mode. I do believe it takes 2 minutes in order for the refrigerant to actually kick in to start blowing physical cold air. We're going to touch on the specs in just a moment. I'm going to let this run for a few minutes and let it do its thing. The current temperature right now is 25.1 degrees. And I'm going to get this situated so it's locked in. And I'm going to monitor this during this test, and I'll give you guys the numbers at the end, and then we'll dive into the specs. All right, everybody, if you guys can make out in the bottom left corner, the reading is now 22.3 degrees Celsius, and it has only been running for about 5 minutes. So it is doing exactly what it is supposed to be doing. It's not a very loud unit. Now keep in mind, if I had this mounted in my bus, way in the back, like I do with my diesel heater hidden amongst the storage area, and I ran the ducting much like I did with my diesel heater, I could then activate this unit in the trunk area with the remote control provided, and all of this noise would be outside of the living area in my tiny home. But even right now, with it here running on the highest output possible, and both of these exhaust ports are inside, had I attached another hose and ran it out the window, a lot of that noise wouldn't even be in here. So it's been going for about 7 minutes right now, and looking at my temperature gauge, it is 20.6 degrees Celsius. So that right there is a 5-degree drop in just 7 to 8 minutes. With a wood stove situated very, very closely, that is definitely doing what it's supposed to be doing. All right, so now that the test is completed, I've shut the unit off, and it does go through about a 5 to 10 second cool down stage for the motor, and the fan will kind of just run through just for a few seconds before it totally goes off. Now, there is another way that you can power this. So let's say you're at home and you don't want to run it with the battery. Well, it's very simple. The cable on the end of the AC jack, so this is how you charge the battery, it's the same output. So we can literally disconnect from the battery, and we can then plug this into the AC unit, disconnect the air conditioning unit from the battery, and run it via AC power. So if you're in a cabin and that's the way you want to go, you could do it that way. If you're off grid, you could choose to charge your battery and then simply plug in the cable later on, and it boots up and you're ready to go for some AC. All right, so coming into the booklet here, having a look at some of these interfaces for the buttons. Over here, we have a look at the plus and minus button, which is located up here on the image as well. This is to increase or decrease the fan. We then have a mode button. This is fan mode, which activates no refrigerant. It just basically is a blowing fan on you. If you want to go into cool mode, the air conditioner will then enter cool mode, and this activates the refrigerant, which is actual air conditioned air. Up here, we then have a rocket for strong mode. That's the highest fan and the highest cooling mode, which is refrigerated. We then have sleep mode, which is activated, and it basically runs the unit at a slower rate and a little bit of a quieter rate as well. Up here, we then have a light button. So the unit does have a light. Unfortunately, it cannot be fully utilized with the hose attached to it, but if you're running it without the hose, then the light is totally functional. All right, everybody. With that concluded, I am going to leave the wood stove burning at its same rate, and I'm going to let the temperature climb back up just to verify where it's going to level out at. I did not add anything to the wood stove. It is running the same way it has been 10 minutes ago. So we're going to let that climb back up to the temperature it was before introducing the AC, and we're just going to verify numbers here. During that, I'm going to go on the actual website, zerobreeze.com, and I'm going to pull it up here, and I am going to put some of these images up on the screen just so you guys have something to read along with. This is the Zero Breeze Mark II. It looks like they're currently on a promotion from $1,599 to $1,399. There are 4 packages that you can get. Some are with battery and without battery. My unit is with the battery and all of the accessories. Coming down here to some of the features, so low power, 240 watts. It can run with a battery unit. It says 24 volt battery supply, or run the AC unit with our battery for 3 to 5 hours on portable usage. So you can run this 3 to 5 units with the supplied battery unit. It states it will drop 30 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 minutes air outlet temperature down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's saying it will drop the ambient air down to 30. It weighs 16.5 pounds. And I'm just going to open up their description fan. So the sound level is 52 decibels. The wind speed level is 4. The working mode, so there are different modes which we've already covered, which is cool, fan, sleep, and rocket. The cooling rated input is 240 watts. The rated voltage is 24 volt DC. The unit size is 20 inches long, 10 inches wide by 11 inches high. The moisture protection, or the waterproof protection, is IPX4. And that's for the unit itself. Now going down to the battery information, it is a 18650 lithium ion polymer battery. So all the little batteries inside of that large cell. The capacity of that is 24 volt, 35 amp hours at 840 watt hours. The DC charge unit is 18 volt to 36 volt, recommended input 21 volt to 27 volt range. Full charge time from 0 to 100 is 5 to 6 hours with the official adapter that is included. So if you're going to be using a different adapter, it may vary. The net weight of the battery itself is 12 pounds. The size of the battery is 20 inches long, 8.6 inches wide, 2.3 inches high, and the operating temperature is from 0 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius, which is also known as 32 Fahrenheit, all the way to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is a little bit of information for you guys. That's right off their website. Feel free to visit it if you're interested in finding out more. Now I want to show you this lighting feature. You got to get this hose off and show you how that operates. I did find that if you do have the unit inside of your bus, so just pretend with me here for a second that this is where it's going to be mounted and that's how it's going to work. If this hose was connected, essentially what I have right now is a light diffuser. If this hose was still visible while it was mounted, basically the light still would work in quite a nice night light, I might add. So it would be a very diffused light because it's trapped inside of this white tube. It's much like putting a flashlight up to a milk jug. It'll diffuse the light, so it does still work, but I think for most people, if you're going to be mounting this hose, it's going to be because you're hiding the unit and you're running the hose to an outlet to then introduce the air into your environment. But I'm going to get this dismantled and show you guys the light up close. Alright guys, now that I got the hose and the shroud dismantled off of the unit, I did put the screws back in and sunk them in just for storage, that way I don't lose them. I'm simply going to turn the battery unit on, firing up the AC unit at the same time, and then we'll press on the AC unit to kick that on, and I'm just going to cycle through the light. So there you guys can see the light comes on. It's a nice halo ring light. Simple on and off feature. You guys can see what I mean. If that shroud was on, it would be a frosted light because this would be covered, as well as the LCD screen would be covered inside of the hose unit. Okay everybody, now that the testing and the specs and everything have been covered, now it's your turn. What do you guys think about the battery operated air conditioning unit from Zero Breeze? I will give you an update on the temperature, guys. It has gone up to 29.2 degrees Celsius. From the minute where I first started testing to right now, the elapsed time of filming was probably only about 16 minutes, guys. So the wood stove is pumping out some heat. The outside temperature is now 0.2 degrees Celsius. So it actually did get colder outside and it's getting warmer inside. So that should give you guys an idea of what kind of temperature range this could be utilized for. Keep in mind, this unit is not designed to cool a big square footage home or a 40-foot school bus. I'm in a very small, tiny bus right now. It is basically aimed at cooling down cars, trucks, truck bed campers, small buses like this, tents, small rooms. So if you live in a small apartment building and let's say you want air conditioning, this will do a small room. It's not designed to cool down a gigantic room and make it, you know, wintertime inside and it'd be summertime outside. So it does its job at what it's supposed to do. And for it's not a big unit. So for the size of it, I think it could be useful, but I'm not going to give my opinion as what I think about the overall product. I want to know, what do you guys think about the overall product? Let me know down in the comment section. I will definitely be checking it. And if you guys are interested in seeing this and any other gear on this channel be put to actual use, you'll have to go over to my other YouTube channel, Lone Wolf 902, which is down in the description, where everything you see here gets used in the field. This channel is specifically for showing you the products. That's all I got for you guys. I'm going to be in the comment section checking out your thoughts. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next video.